Well, it is a great joy to be at Bloomberg's The Year Ahead with none other than Delta CEO. It is Ed Bastian. It is always a joy to speak to you, sir. Wishing you a happy new year. It almost feels an age ago that the new year started. And it's an interesting one as we look down the barrel of 100 million COVID cases globally, as we see variants rock through where I sit now in the UK and London, spread globally. But some sound of optimism from you as we do see the vaccine being unrolled unevenly at a large part. But where do you see the impact of COVID going for you, for your business, as we enter 2021?
Well, thanks for having me, Caroline. It's always good to talk to you and good to be part of your program. We just finished 2020, which was in the travel industry by far the most difficult year ever for us. And I'm really proud of how our team has fought through, protecting people, protecting our customers, getting the very best medical advice and counsel as we work through this pandemic. And we'll continue on that pathway. The vaccines hold great promise. In our country, we're over 1 million vaccinations a day is the run rate that we are currently at. We anticipate by spring, we're going to start to see an inflection where the virus will go into a much more contained state. People will feel much more comfortable starting to get their life back. It won't be normal at first, of course. It's going to take some time to work towards it. But over the next 90 days, I am optimistic that we're going to come out of this lockdown period. International borders will start to reopen, and we'll be on the other side of starting to gain real victories against the virus.
What does that normal look like? If I get on a Delta plane, will the middle seat still be blocked? Will I be wearing masks? How does it make you feel? What will traveling look like come that?
Yeah, so I think travel will feel very much like it feels today. All the safety protocols will stay in place, the mask wearing, the electrostatic spray fogging, the cleanliness, all the filtration processes. We right now are blocking the middle seats through the end of March. We have a decision to take as to whether we continue to advance that, which we're looking at now, and we'll probably be making that decision in the next couple of weeks, how much further we could consider returning, because we don't want to start selling those middle seats really until people feel comfortable sitting in those middle seats. We know medically it's safe to sit in the middle seat, but we want our customers to help guide that direction rather than us making that decision unilaterally. So, watch out for that decision. It's coming soon. But the bottom line on it all is we're taking really, really good care of the protection of our people, and that's not going to change. We're going to, as we go through the spring and summer, we're going to continue to stay very vigilant about protecting against the virus, because we know as we go through this year, it's the virus isn't going to go away. It's going to maybe move to a lower state of remission, but there's still going to be some drumbeat of virus in the broad population that we have to be mindful of.
It's interesting. We've actually got an audience question on that note, asking about, well, if we're going to perhaps still have the safety measures, the social distancing, the masks, what about some sort of travel document you'll need to say that you've had a vaccine? Is that in any way going to be a realistic assumption?
I think it will be for international travel. I don't think for domestic travel it's practical. We're carrying at Delta, we're carrying over 1 million people a week now. So I think on the domestic system in the U.S., nor do I think, say, domestic within continental Europe, it'll be practical. But for international, I think it's probably going to be required by the international authorities in terms of opening up borders. Right now, as you know, testing is a requirement to come into the U.S. as well as many other countries, which we support, we endorse, and it's going to cause some delay in the return of travel because of that, but we think it's prudent. But eventually, hopefully, that will move into a vaccination, and we're working on a technology platform by which people can easily show their vaccination record.
And when you're saying there is this pent-up demand, you've already got 1 million being flown within domestically. How much, when the new normal comes, when we see this inflection point, when people have the comfort to get on planes, is it going to be for the holiday that I'm desperate to have and I can't? Is it going to be for business purposes and I'm going to be able to start having these conferences once again face to face? How does that impact your business? Because Delta was so much focused on the business traveler.
Yeah, I think it's going to be All of the above, though they'll come at different phases and different paces. I think the seeing your friends and family and getting away for a trip just to escape the monotony of the lockdowns will be the principal driver initially. People just want to get away. They want to go to places they haven't been able to get to for some period of time to escape. The challenges of the past year. Businesses will be a little slower in the pickup. I don't know, the pace of recovery. We polled our own big corporate customers just a couple of weeks ago in advance of our earnings, and got a sense from them. 40% of our customers said that expect their businesses to be fully back in travel by 2022. Another 11% said 2023. And 45% said they're not quite sure yet. They're still figuring out. Interestingly, only 7% said it will never return to the way it was in 2019. So you hear all the doom and gloom prognosticators that business travel is never going to return to where it was. Only 7% of the people that actually make those decisions are saying that. So I think you'll see more like what it was in 2019. Eventually, over time, it's just going to be a pacing activity as people get more confident being back out in public. I'll use myself as an example. I've been flying throughout the pandemic. The early months, there was a lot of apprehension as people, looking around in the airports. It felt like a bit of a scary place to be. But now, the people that are traveling, they've adapted. It feels very normal and very safe for most people traveling. So as people come into the system, it's going to take them a while to adjust. But I do think we're going to see their conferences may be a little longer to come back, unfortunately, but they'll come back. They will come back.
And you're saying people have adapted. Your business, how has it adapted to perhaps 11% not doing the business travel you anticipated until 2023, that the 40% still undecided?
Yeah, well, we've downsized our business. We've reduced our total seats and planes by about 20%, and we've also offered early retirement packages. So about 20% of our people also have retired from the company. So we've already adjusted the big cost drivers, the big fixed, structural costs, the people and our fleet to accommodate a slower return back to the new level of normal. So I think we'll be very easily making the changes that we need to make to adapt to it. We're also seeing, though, that customers, when they are making the decision to come back, are telling us that there's going to be a surge when it does come. I think there will be an initial surge. I think there'll be a leveling out, maybe in a year's time, and then probably a new level of surge. Probably international is a year away from thinking about when the real surge is going to come. But the domestic surge, we've got to be ready for this summer, and we are ready.
And of course, this is a health crisis that we live in, but it's become a knock-on economic crisis. As you say, you've had to look to your people, and I know that they've been incredibly adaptable and looking to take early retirement and taking unpaid leave as such. How do you see the economy rolling out and supporting your business going forward? Are you worried about it?
I'm optimistic. Internally, within the U.S. anyway, we're looking at about a 6% GDP growth for our country, assuming the vaccines roll out as we're anticipating they will. That's great for travel. Travel, I think, will be a much higher contributor to GDP since we took a big drop down over the last year. And it's not just, obviously, air travel. It's the hotels, it's the theme parks, it's the casinos, it's the cruise lines. They're all such big contributors. Our industry broadly is the single biggest contributor to overall GDP in our nation. So when you see the nation's going to be up 6%, that means travel and hospitality is going to be up, probably a meaningful increment to that.
It's been such an extraordinary year now and coming into 2 years, Ed, because it's not only been a health crisis, but it has been a social crisis, an economic crisis, but also a political crisis that we've just seen unfold on this side of 2021 in the United States to January the 6th, etched in everyone's mind as to what happened in terms of on Capitol Hill. Your perspective now on Delta's role within politics, how you see politics unfolding. First and foremost, how do you like the new administration, what they're being announced in terms of supporting the rollout of the vaccine? Of course, I'm sure is music to your ears, but some of the restrictions in terms of travel, some of the mask mandates, does it help or hinder you?
It helps us a lot, Caroline. It's one of the things that I've been seeking for the last year. The reinforcement of masks, for example, getting a federal mask mandate puts our people in a position that they're backed up by the federal authorities. We've had to put our own mask mandates in place just on our own policies, and having the federal government's guidance and support on that, does wonders, and helps compliance at a much higher level. Testing, we've been a big advocates of testing for a long time to open up international borders. I'm pleased to see the testing policies the new administration is adapting and adopting going forward. So I think the incremental support and the guidance that the federal government, that the Biden administration is providing and will continue to provide to contain the virus and to defeat the virus is going to be very, very helpful to our business. Yes, it creates in the current moment some choppiness in demand. We've seen a lot of the near-in demand that we've had internationally, such as Mexico and the Caribbean, has pulled back because there's not testing supplies in those countries, or if someone's just going for a 3 or 4 day trip, they're wondering whether they should stay local versus go international, which is understandable. But by putting those policies in place, we at least now have a framework to give people confidence that the borders can be reopened safely, and that's a sign, for the long game that they're doing the right thing.
For moving on from politics of just a new administration, but politics in general, you must have had to look at the way in which Delta has a relationship with politics, the spending on politics. Have you reassessed that since what happened with the riots, and indeed the way in which certain congressmen and women acted before, in the midst, and after that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we have paused, all political contributions from our PAC to any officials as we reassess. To your point, exactly, understanding what we have just been through. We have been through an existential crisis, within our country, driven by the politicization of the elections and the questions that resound still. When we give donations to elected officials, we want to make certain that those are officials that reflect the values of our company, that we are in sync with what they are promoting and stand by, and that they're an effective advocate for our industry, for the aviation industry, in terms of what needs to happen on the Hill. And the events of the last month inform that judgment.
Talking of existential crises, one that the Biden administration is very focused on, of course, is that of climate change, or policies that focus on a greener future. That was an interesting commitment that Delta made. Big spending, about $1 billion, right, in terms of making your company greener. How have you been able to ensure you can keep on that investment when you yourself, I'm sure, in the midst of March and April, felt that Delta was facing down an existential crisis of its own, and how you decide to invest within that?
Well, there's a lot that we've been through this year with the pandemic, and the one thing that I think we can all appreciate is that we have a newfound recognition for wellness, for resilience, for health, and aware of what it's going to take to have a sustainable future, and in terms of whether it's protecting our employees, protecting our customers, or protecting our planet. And I'm proud of the decision that we took a year ago to ensure that we're investing in carbon offset technologies that will go back and recapture the carbon that we have used over the past year, and we are staying firm to that commitment. So no, we've not changed or blinked at all. Obviously, for this past year, the amount of flying that we've done is dramatically lower than what we were scheduled to fly, so the commitment within the year is lower, but we are carrying forward and we'll be making investments in the coming weeks and months to give recognition to the carbon that we used last year, and we're going to be making investments, and we'll be letting and being very transparent about what those investments are, so people can see how Delta is continuing to abide not only by its commitment, but continue to hopefully inspire others to join us on this journey.
It's so true. If you can't measure it, you can't change it. And it's actually interesting that you seem to be holding yourself to account on that, not only when it comes to the climate, but also back to your people. Talk to us about the social aspect of 2020 and 2021. I'm sure, as a man who lives in Atlanta, Georgia. As a company that is based in Georgia, you've been very much aware of the social tension, the pressure that has been there, and the response to your people. I know that you put out a statement on Martin Luther King Day to reaffirm that commitment you have in terms of the focus that we now have, that the racial awakening and recognition we've realized, and the change that needs to happen. How are you measuring yourself, and how are your people responding to it?
Well, we are measuring it, and we're continuing to affirm that, and it's a long journey, right? It's making sure that one of the learnings that we had over the past year was that we needed to increase substantially our commitment to those that have been harmed over time, which was more visible to us over the past year than ever, because we had stopped. We could see with our own eyes where the inequities really sat, and for us, it clearly was with the Black and African American community. We've increased the amount of hiring towards Black leadership and roles and developing. We made a commitment. We're one of the founding members of 110, a great organization that Ken Frazier has started, and I've been talking to Ken and Ginny Rometty, who is helping Ken on that journey, and ensuring that we're finding creating the new jobs for Black colleagues and leadership opportunities into the future. We've gone through all of our hiring slates. We've ensured there's no bias, and continuing to make sure that the qualifications that are required are absolutely essential. And importantly, Caroline, we're continuing the learning. This is not something that we can say that we now understand it. We need to, so whether it's with our own employees internally, and I'm spending a lot of time with our own Black employees, continuing to reflect as to where we go, or if it's with leaders that are teaching us what we've been through. Last week, I had the great pleasure of being with Ambassador Andrew Young and doing a company-wide town hall with him. And Andy he lived. He walked the streets with Martin Luther King, and he was one of his compatriots. He's one of the last remaining colleagues who was there, and he gave a beautiful summary to our people, reflecting on MLK on the commemoration of his birthday. That when he died, because Andy was there with him when he died, he saw his body lose its life, but he also saw its spirit unleash that day. And his point to all of us is that his impact on all of us today is far greater than it was back in 1968 when he was killed. And so that's living evidence that the spirit of what Martin Luther King stood for is now our responsibility to continue to carry out in our community, particularly here in Atlanta, the birthplace of the civil rights movement in our country.
Talk to us about spirit. Talk to us about leadership. You yourself as a leader, what do you think 2020, and now as you look down to 2021, what have you learned about yourself? What will you do differently, do you think?
Oh, I've learned a lot. It was a humbling year, certainly. It was a year that we had entered thinking that we had lots of answers, and we already had our plans, and in space of 30 days, those plans were waylaid, and we had to redevelop what we stood for. It gave me an opportunity to reflect on purpose, more than ever, the purpose that our people provide, the role that our company serves in society. And one of the reasons I'm optimistic, people say that, despite all the craziness out there, I'm still optimistic. And I am optimistic because I know the pain that we are all experiencing from isolation, from the fact that we can't be together, we can't be with loved ones, we can't be in person. We've got to protect that isolation. And the fact that it's had a big impact on our products, our ability to sell our products, tells me our product really has great value in society and in the world. And our product, at Delta, we like to say no one better connects the world. Well, that's needed more than ever. And so when it is safe, as it will be hopefully over these next several months for people to start to pick up travel again, our product will be in high demand, and it'll serve an essential mission in life in terms of bringing the world through the greatest crisis we've seen in many, many years. So that's why I have confidence that Delta's going to come through this leading the way and being an advocate for unity rather than the challenges we face today.
That was so beautifully put, Ed. I want to ask you just lastly, because we have got a question from the audience that I'm desperate to get to, in terms of that response to your consumer, the need that you see, our desire to connect. How are you looking to reward those stakeholders right now? That people depend on their travel points and different ways and means of ensuring that they spend their money with you. Have you been innovating in that respect once you hit the ground
Yes.
running and we're all desperate to get back on the plane?
Yeah, well, there's going to be great bargains. There's going to be great. There's a lot of seats in the marketplace, and pricing
Is that
is
okay, the
weaker.
bargain side, though?
Yeah, yeah, it's okay. It's okay. We understand it's going to take some time for travel to continue, for people to have confidence in travel. It's interesting. The customer base that we're carrying today is a younger generation. It's a younger demographic. They're more seeking the adventure, so they're more price sensitive, and they're getting great bargains. We're taking great care of them through that journey. But there's going to be, as travel comes back, there's going to be some great opportunities. I think the hotels, the cruise lines, everyone's going to be wanting to incent travel. And so for those that want to get out on the wave of starting to get out and fill that pent-up demand, there's going to be opportunity there, and it's okay. It's okay that pricing will take a while to catch up to where demand really needs to be. But that's one of the things that we do. We're a supply-demand driven company, and when the demand comes, that's when the opportunity can firm up pricing. But for now, it's okay. Pricing is going to help lead the recovery.